Welcome to another episode of the Roar podcast. So this is a wellbeing podcast and it's aimed at inspiring you to create and live a life that you absolutely love. And here at Roar, we care deeply about your holistic well-being. So your mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, financial, social, your work, and especially your work, because too many of us walk this tightrope between pressure to perform and fighting fatigue from not prioritizing our well-being. We literally work through our burnouts and sacrifice our health just to get ahead in our careers. But there is another way, and it starts with you. You being your whole self. You making your whole life work. You letting your whole self roar. I am your host, Marilise de Villiers-Basson, and today I am delighted to welcome Maya Comerota. Hello, Maya.
Hello, Marilise. It is such a privilege and an honor to be here with you. I'm super excited.
Absolutely love it, and equally big privilege. I know we struggled to make this happen. We have postponed this a few times, so this must be the universe telling us this is perfect timing. Let me just tell you a little bit about Maya. Maya is a luminary, spiritual advisor and transformational leader, an expert speaker, and has supported over 2 million people worldwide to discover their unique gifts so that they can live a life that they absolutely love. And Maya really has this special gift of guiding people back home to their heart and spirit so that they can really live the way they were born to live. Hence Maya's whole brand being around be her now, be him now. You are born for this, and we'll explore those concepts more today. But really, I have known Maya for over 3 years now. She's been my coach. She's become an amazing friend and colleague. And, you know, I've had the absolute privilege of going through her elite programs and also her masterminds, always in your wildest dreams. And it's really been incredible, you know, not only to witness my own progress, but to witness Maya's progress and, you know, how she brings us along on that journey with her. So Maya, I so appreciate you being with me today and sharing your heart with us.
Oh, thank you so much. And my heart is so deeply touched by your words and your presence and what a beautiful journey it has been. And I know it just continues to unfold in the most miraculous ways.
Beautiful. Yeah, and thank you. So Maya, I'd love to dive right into your passion, you know, I mean, which we just said is guiding people to live a life that they absolutely love, you know, remembering who you are, who you're born to be, and that special gift. You really passionately believe that we all have that special gift, that we all have the X factor. And so can you please say a little bit more?
Absolutely. You know, I think this all stems from, I believe we're all born with a purpose. Like there's only one you, there's only one me, there's only one of every person who's listening. It's like you were placed on this planet for a reason. There's never been anyone like you. There will never be anyone like you in the future. And so there's just one you. And given that there's just one you, there's something that wants to express in the world from you. There's some way that we're meant to experience the world that only you can experience. And, I learned this by, I think we're all born so innocent and enjoying life and being giggly and alive and wanted to dance and sing and play and be astronauts and pilots and dancers and singers and whatever may be. And then we learn quite quickly that may not be logical, or that may not be practical, or you're too loud, or you're too wild, or you're too messy, or you're too sensitive, or whatever these words are that we hear. And then all of a sudden we start to dampen and mute ourselves and then align with what culture says is what's acceptable. And that was very much my story. Like I wanted to be a Broadway star and a doctor and a hairdresser. I wanted to heal people and make sure that their hair looked great along the way. And so, and then at a certain point, it was like, well, no, you've got to get good grades and you've got to go to a good school and you've got to do all these things. And I started really adjusting myself to what was acceptable to everybody else. And, soon, 20 years later, I'm, working in a corporation and I'm working 100-hour weeks and more work, 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 work. And on paper, everything looks amazing. And yet inside, I was really struggling. And, it took a really terrible car accident to wake me up to, there's another life that I'm meant to be living. And, when I had this car accident, I'm spinning through the air. And I was quite fortunate. My 3-year-old son at the time had, stopped me before I ran out the door. And he's like, Mommy, take me with you. And I lunged down to grab him and then got very clearly, sometimes we have these like divine moments that it's like, no. And I don't know why I didn't, but it just was like, no, I'm not going to take you. Well, 20 minutes later, a huge SUV is crashing into my car and we're spinning through the air. And thank goodness I didn't take my son. As that crash happens, I look in the rearview mirror and my son's car seat is crashed in. And so had he been with me, he likely would not have survived. And so through this car crash, I hear this voice and, I see this vision of my funeral. I see everyone so sad and I hear this voice and it just said, Maya, you haven't done what you came here to do. And you can imagine, for someone I had built 3 multi-billion-dollar companies. I had a team of 300. I had supported over 300,000 patients who had lifelong autoimmune illness. I had done a variety. I'd won every single award you could possibly win. And I'm like, I haven't done it yet. Like I have the house and I have the husband and I have the child and I had the awards and I had the job and I had the career and I hadn't done it yet. And I knew it was true because my heart had been so numb for so long from pushing down everything that I was meant to be, which was fully expressed and creative and alive and fun and playful and all of these different things while still living my purpose and my passion. And so I prayed to God that day, and it was my first actual conversation with God. I hadn't been praying prior to this, but when you're in the midst of a car accident, you find yourself praying for the first time. And, I just said, if I make it out of here alive, like I will do everything in my power to be who I'm here to be. And I made it out alive. I actually, it was divine that I didn't have a scratch on me, neither did the other woman, but both of our cars were totaled. So something truly miraculous happened that day. And then, I spent the next 6 months just really navigating my next step. And 6 months later, I left my corporate career and then started on this journey to really discover, who I was and what I was here to do. And on that journey, what I discovered was that message that like, you haven't done what you came here to do. That wasn't just for me. That was for everyone. That was like every single one of us has something that we are here to be and do. And it's less about the doing and more about the being and how we experience life. But there was a way that I was meant to show up in life that wasn't muting myself, dimming myself, creating prisons around my work and my accolades and my trophies and all of the things that we build up around us that sound good, but then we can't escape. And so it was a really beautiful journey to then, that's when I started sharing messages and speaking and then coaching and then speaking on big stages and then doing my own live events. And it was that passion and that purpose that really ignited who I truly am here to be as someone to guide people home to their heart and who they are here to be.
Beautiful, beautiful. And so be her now, be him now. Tell us a little bit more. What's the significance of now?
Yeah. So it's so interesting. It's, we have these dreams and we have these desires of like, oh, I want to be this kind of woman or this kind of man, or one day I'm going to be free and I'm going to really enjoy my children, really enjoy my spouse. We're going to go out on date night. I'm going to live my passion. I'm going to show up on, in my videos or on my podcast or whatever it is. Like we have these visions that we put a year, 2 years, 3 years in the future, 10 years in the future. And the real magic of being who we're here to be is deciding to show up as that person right now. Because the dream that we want to fulfill is when we become that person. And so I had this, I was in a business partnership. This was many years ago, and I was in a business partnership, and it ultimately wasn't resonating with me anymore. And I had built that company, I had grown it by millions of dollars and millions of followers. And, I just knew there was this like ache in my heart that it just wasn't, and in my gut, this like tumultuousness in my gut of like, this isn't quite it. For sure, it's not it. And so I went to my business partners and I said, you can, I'm really not feeling that this is the right fit for me. You can keep the programs and you can keep, everything, the profit and the following. And I'm just looking for my investment back so that I can take care of my family. And at that point, they had threatened to fold the entire company and I would lose everything. And they wanted me to stay. That's not typically what you would say to someone that you want to stay, is like, stay or else I'm taking everything from you. That's really what they said. And I remember feeling and thinking to myself, like, I'm not staying in a place where I'm being threatened. However, I do need to take care of my family. I do need to make sure I can put food on the table. Who do I need to be to walk away in 12 months' time? And I created this image of this woman. And she was so confident and she wasn't worried about putting food on the table anymore. And she was so passionate and she believed so much in herself that she went out on her own and she built her own brand because she had worked with these other people, companies and corporations and business partnerships. And it never came to fruition the way that it would from her heart, from my heart. And so I created this image and I said, in 12 months time, I'm walking away and they can keep my life savings. Like it's chump change. Like you can keep the change,
Keep
have it.
change.
And so, yeah, keep the change. And so I literally imagine myself with this like little white shirt and pencil skirt and patent leather heels and, my business partners around at a table, and I would walk in and I have like change in my hand and I tell them I'm, exiting the company, and I just like throw change on the table and I say, keep the change, because I had created a life for myself where I wasn't worried that they were going to take my life savings. So this was the image that I created for myself. And then where Be Her Now and Be Him Now came from was I wasn't waiting 12 months to get there. I was deciding to behave in the way that I would behave right now in order to be that woman. And so it was at that point that I created, I want to say it was like my first real mastermind. And it was called Born for This. And it was helping women specifically to live into the full expression of who they are, to understand that we each have a mission and a message that nobody else has. We each have this like super special gift. And so anybody who's listening, if you're like, well, maybe that's everybody else, but it's not me, I can tell you 100% you have a very special gift that nobody else has. It's what I would call like your X factor. Everyone has it. And it's just really allowing yourself to tap into this and express it and have the courage to take the steps. So I created that mastermind. And then, it wasn't 12 months where I walked away. It was actually 4 months that I was able to walk away from that company. I fortunately didn't have to lose everything either, because things seem to come together when you are being her now and being him now. It's in the most miraculous of ways. And so where Be Her Now and Be Him Now came from is not to allow the vision of your future to be somewhere in the future. It's actually meant to be embodied right now.
Beautiful. I love that. I love that so much. And I think you've actually answered already my next question, which was going to be, what would you say to someone who's listening, who's watching, who's sort of like, oh, maybe you, Maya, maybe Marilise, but not me. I don't have that special gift. And so, if you had to sort of convince them, how would you
Yeah.
do that?
It's such a great question. And it's so common that so many of us believe. I know I did too. It's like, no, I don't have it. They have it. Somebody else has it, but it's what I shared even
It's
in the
not for
beginning.
me,
Yeah, it's not for me.
Yeah.
And there's
Yeah.
no one like you. There's no one that can experience the world like you. There's no one that has the gift and the message and the personal story that you have. It's not about the thing that's done, but it's the story and the inspiration of why it is meaningful for you, why this particular thing lights you up, or why this particular thing makes you sad, or why whatever the case may be. It's like there's some story that you have lived. There's some hero's journey that you've been on that will resonate with somebody's heart, that will ignite them in a way that nobody else can. And that's really unique to every person. I have not found, with all the many, many, many people that I've worked with, I haven't found one person yet that doesn't have an X factor. And I've talked to many people who didn't believe that they did, but everyone does. And if you're listening to this, you do. Now it's about unlocking it, allowing it, being willing, just being willing. I loved what you shared in the beginning, Marilise, of like being your full self and letting your whole self roar. And that is, that's all of our invitation to let your whole self come out and roar.
Yes. And I think you've alluded to the fact that, when you're in a very successful corporate career, but you have that, ache that there's something missing. There must be more to life than this. There is always this almost like tension between, following your heart, following your passion, and doing the sensible, responsible thing to support your family. And so you have also had to navigate that. So have you got some tips for people to sort of hang on to just have that little courage to take that first step?
Absolutely. I think first and foremost, it's really understanding what it is that brings you most alive and moving in that direction, because what the world needs is more people. Like, this is the thing that's a magnet. Like, this is what magnetizes people to who you are and how you serve and what you do is actually your level of aliveness. That is the magnetism. Everything in the world is energy. So one, it's finding that. And two, it's recognizing like this entire journey of our life is a life experiment. It's meant to be enjoyed. We're not meant to push papers around and just do the things that are responsible. Although I would say, in my perspective, I think the most responsible thing to do is to do the thing that makes you most alive, because you are the embodiment for your children. You are the embodiment for your spouse. You are the permission for anybody that's experiencing you, witnessing you. I know, with my own children, I struggled with doing what culture says is the responsible thing and doing the job and the 9 to 5 and the thing that brought me so much stress at the time, and fulfilling my purpose and my passion. And, for some people, being in your corporate career is your purpose and your passion, and that's great. I struggled in it because I didn't have my own boundaries around my life and being able to shut parts of that down. But I struggled for a period of time of like, how do I navigate this feeling of responsibility and then also this purpose and this passion? And I was able to recontextualize it. And the question that I would ask every person who's listening is like, if there were little people watching you, or, if you do have children, or if you do have people that are in your environment that are colleagues or friends that are inspired by you and who you are, what is the experience of you that you desire them to have? Is it you doing the logical thing that burns you out, or the logical to many people, and it's not really logical if it burns you out, but you doing that? Or is it you being in your full whole expression that then is permission for your children to follow their dreams, for your spouse to follow their dreams, for your colleagues and your friends to follow their dreams? And I've had this word coming up for me so much of being permission. Like, I want to be the permission, one, for myself and for anybody else, and also be the one who's inviting people to live more. And I think that's the greatest gift that we can give each other, is the invitation to come more alive.
I love that. Permissioned, be permissioned, be permissioned. That's beautiful. You remind me of, a couple of years ago when, I think it was probably one of your biggest live events that you did on the stage with Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi, and you had your kids with you. And I remember you telling us how, it's sort of tied in with what you're saying about what brings you most alive and how you show up, and that permission and authenticity, being your full self, letting your whole self roar. And you were telling us how important it was that the only thing that matters was your kids, they would know when you show up on that stage, whether it's the true, authentic Maya showing up on that stage. And that was such a um, powerful real life example of the impact and the influence and the role models that we are for our kids, our partners, our colleagues, our friends, even our family, parents, sisters, brothers. So yeah, it's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that
And I
so
think
much.
what I loved about that too, and thank you for reflecting that, is, people had asked me, were you nervous? Were you nervous that Tony Robbins was watching you? Were you worried about what they would
Yeah,
think? And it was like, and really what I was most nervous about was my son, because he knows me. He knows who I am at home, and he knows who, and I'm like, if there's any false bone in my body, he's going to pick up on it. And so
yeah,
that was what I was most like, I wasn't worried, but most aware of was like, I want my son to know that I'm the same woman at home that I am on stage, and that I'm not doing something to prove anything to anyone, but just be the greatest expression that I can be for me. And
beautiful.
if that inspires people, then wonderful. If they don't resonate with it, then they're not meant to. And I think
Yeah,
that's one of the things that's really important for us all to recognize is, and I actually wrote a poem about this just yesterday. We're not meant to be palatable to everyone, and yet we make ourselves palatable. We make ourselves acceptable. We mute what we say, we mute what we do because we're afraid of what one person, two people, 1,000 people, however many people will think. But that's precisely the thing that gets in our way of being our absolute full self and allowing our full self to roar, which I would imagine every person who's listening is like, yes, I want my full self to roar. And I just don't even know how. Like, I just don't even know exactly what that is, which I just am so grateful that you do this podcast to give people the tools and the awareness and the inspiration to be able to allow themselves to do it.
yeah. And I was going to come on to really asking about, and I think this is really where we have to, first step of roar is to recognize, and that's to notice, to recognize what thoughts are coming up for you, and what is the stories that are coming up for you. And you've mentioned making ourselves small, muting ourselves, and so I just love to dig a little deeper into what are some of those typical stories and sort of label it perhaps limiting beliefs that we tell ourselves, which result in us muting, result in us making ourselves small. I mean, probably from your own personal experience, but also I guess conditioning, and also both of us being very high performing, very ambitious corporate careers, that sort of conditioning that we had. And let's talk a little bit about that conditioning and what that sort of was and
Yeah,
continues sometimes to be.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Such a great question. You know, I think at the very core, it's like, at the very core, it's, am I good enough? Am I worthy enough? And, but then also, will I be left? Will I be abandoned? Will I be rejected? Will I be judged? And it's if this person judges me, it's not about their judgment, it's how I feel about myself when you judge me. And so, we place a lot of importance on other people's opinions, and specifically, it might be family, it might be colleagues, it might be spouse. And we're not really afraid of their judgment. We're afraid of our own judgment of ourselves if they judge us. What does it mean if my spouse doesn't believe in me? What does it mean if my parents think I'm bonkers? What does it mean if they think I'm irresponsible with my children? What does it? And so, I think at the core, a lot of it is, like, am I good enough? Can I do this? Um, there's a fear of judgment and rejection. One of the greatest pandemics or epidemics is loneliness. Loneliness, depression, and super depression. But loneliness is number one. There's like big conferences that are happening right now on loneliness. And we all, like so many of us, have this fear, this like visceral fear that we will be abandoned in some way. We will be rejected in some way. And what does that then mean if this person rejects me? If this person doesn't like what I have to say? And so I think those are the core. But then there's also, there's this quote by Marianne Williamson, and she talks about it's not our dark that we're most afraid of, it's our light. And there's also a fear of really showing up. Like, and I can tell you, I didn't understand this quote for so long because I'm like, how could I be afraid of my light? Like, how is it possible that I can be afraid of my fullness and afraid of my bigness and afraid of like who I am when I fully show up as this woman in all of her capacity? But that is also something that we are all probably more afraid of than than you know the dark or the judgment or the other things. It's like, who am I when I am in my full expression? And I think there's one other is I think everybody who's listening to this is a super high performer. And so, we're used to performing and achieving at really big levels. And so the other fear is not necessarily failure, but it's needing to start small again, needing to start over again, needing to, when you're used to like charging forward and doing the things and getting the awards, it's like being a baby again and learning to scoot and then crawl and then walk. When I left my corporate career and then started, I always joke around. I call myself an accidental entrepreneur, and I became a very successful accidental entrepreneur. But I wasn't like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. Like, this is my vision. Like, never, ever was that something that I thought or said, but I became one. But it started with like sharing a message and going on like Facebook and just sharing my heart with people. And one person might have shown up and not, I was used to speaking on stages to thousands of people. And now I'm like speaking to a Facebook thing and 3 people show up. And, one of them is my aunt. She's like, who in the heck are you talking to? Like, I don't even know what you're doing. And I'm like, I'm just sharing my heart and my journey. And, so I think one of the other fears that a lot of high achievers have is having to do something small or beginning and being wobbly and not being perfect. And so if we can rewrite that, and this is something I'm currently navigating myself, because I built so much of a image around myself. And now I found a lot of creativity flowing through me in ways that, I get woken up at 4:00 in the morning to write poetry. And so I write like 8 poems before I even start my day. And I'm like, what do I do with all this? And people don't know me as this person who does this. And, I got very clearly, you just show up. You show up and you show up in the mess, and you show up in the raw, and you show up in the vulnerable. And you're the permission to allow other people to really tune into that part that is yearning and longing to be seen and yearning and longing to express. And so those are the things that I think most of us are afflicted by, that keep us from following what we desire to do.
Yeah. And I want people to hear this. Just show up. It's been a little bit of a, focus for me over the last year or so, especially, with this big move back from England to South Africa. And some days you've got just so much going on and so many balls in the air. And I started just showing up and showing up and showing up and consistently showing up, even if it's for a yoga class, or even if it's the last thing you feel like doing, just show up.
Yes.
Because then, magic happens, miracles unfold. But half, or I'd say 90% of the thing is to show up. So I really want people to hear that.
Yeah.
It's been so significant.
Yeah, just show up. Like, and
Yeah.
first and foremost, you're showing up for you. You're
Yeah.
showing up for you. It was really fascinating because as I was leaning into this message of like show up in even greater vulnerability, show up in greater rawness, Maya, like not perfectly curated, not perfectly done, like just show up. And
Yeah. I love
I
that.
went back to the, the very beginning of like, what did I do when I was just starting? And I like filmed a video just for me. And like, I have literally spoken on stages to millions and millions of people. And just recently I filmed a video just for me and my legs were trembling. Like I
Mm.
was like, I'm not even going to show this to anyone. Like, my plan is not to even show this. It's me showing up in my fullness for me, and my legs were trembling, and it was such a beautiful experience for me to recognize like when we are showing up in our it's like sometimes the hardest thing to do but the most beautiful thing to do, but doing just showing up, and first and foremost showing up for you, for the you that's like, I just desire to be this person, like I just desire, so take one step. And that one
Mm.
step maybe, like for me, it was just doing this one video for myself. And then it led to something else, and it led to something else. And then the response that I got was amazing and beautiful. But sometimes you won't get any response. And it's just knowing I did this for me. I showed up for me. And those are the biggest, boldest, like that's the roar, I believe, is like it's
Yeah.
you doing it for you. And
Yeah.
it's super powerful.
Show up, but show up for you. It's so beautiful you say that. I needed to hear that today. So I've just had my little cue or clue why this is happening, because I really appreciate hearing that, and I really heard it today. So I think one of the recent my son has also been going through a bit of a hiccup with his rugby and teams and where he plays, and um, I said exactly the same to him, show up, but show up for you.
Yeah.
And I think, it's so easy for us to give advice to other people, but it's, let's also take our own advice. And often we
Yeah.
often we don't. Often we don't.
And it could be
Beautiful.
the smallest step. Like I mentioned, like I was talking to a colleague of mine, and a client of mine, because they were also, really leaning into showing up in a more powerful way. And I was supporting them to just take one step. But
Mm.
they're also used to like being very curated, like speaking to millions of people and doing all of these things. But you create almost a prison around yourself that you can't, it's like, oh, well, I can't show up unless I show up in my perfection. And
Yeah.
and when you, it's like, what is it that Marilise needs today? What is it that Maya needs today? What is it that whoever, what is it, each one of you that's listening, I would tune into, like, what is it that I need to show up for today? Not any responsibility to anybody else, but for me, that would create the greatest shift in my life today. Just what's the one thing that I could do? And do that thing for you. And then
Mm.
watch how that, like, just watch how it impacts other people, because you
Mm.
showed up in the fullness, in the truth of who you are.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And I also love that, we recognize that it can be the smallest step. Again, thinking 5 years ago and thinking high performance and thinking about morning routines and dialing in habits, and, it's got to take an hour this and a 2 hour this. And I think, I think this whole idea of, you've got to have this perfectly tuned in hour to hour morning routine. It's not feasible. Who has 2 hours these days? And so I just wanted to sort of talk a little bit about your most recent 30 days of miracles challenge that you are running, or experience, I should say, that you are running. I think it's literally in its third day now, but it's centered around this idea of 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the evening, and it's really to lean into this sort of life in living the miraculous. So can you just say a little bit more about that? And then maybe we can invite people to join. We can share a link and we can invite
Yeah.
people to join as well. So
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love it.
yeah.
And so 30 Days of Miracles, it stemmed from, so first of all, it was around my birthday that I received this inspiration of, I really wanted to share this opportunity for people to experience the miraculous every day. I'm sort of a teacher, leader, guide in this space, and have been for some time in supporting people to like live the life that they would absolutely love. And at the same time, several years ago, about 2.5, 3 years ago, I found myself in a really incredibly challenging, vulnerable space where my entire life changed. And it was like what do they call it? Like a dark night of the soul. And I have such tremendous tools, like I have amazing coaches and I am an amazing coach and all these things and I have all these tools. And I'm like, I don't know what people would do if they didn't have all these tools. And I had to go back to like sometimes it was hard to get out of bed with what I was navigating and the changes that were happening in my life that really were rocking the very foundation that I had built. And I just had to get back to the very simplest of things. Like, what is it that I can do today that will support my day, support me to have my best experience, and just believe in, any sort of miracle today, which might even be just getting out of bed, but whatever that is, but then, lean into, the life that I had been living and then expand on that. And so at that time, I started doing a practice, which was journaling 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes at night. But it was a very specific, like, gratitude practice. And I call it the morning wow. And then also good night gratitude. And I'm very much like, I've studied neuroscience and quantum physics and all of these things and been in biotech. And one of the things that I'm really passionate about is doing the thing, like the one thing that would take the least amount of time that would have the maximum amount of impact. And journaling gratitude for 5 minutes in the morning and journaling gratitude at 5 minutes at night is the thing that can shift your day, probably more than anything else. Because before you go to bed, those 5 minutes, whatever you do in the 5 minutes before you go to bed, is going to set your day up set your night up when you're sleeping. The next 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours of your sleep will be grounded in the frequency of what you thought about 5 minutes before you go to bed. So I'm like, if I could do something for 5 minutes that then impacts 8 hours of my life, let's do it. And then same thing in the morning, first thing in the morning, your brainwave state is in a very suggestible state. It's called alpha. And so when you're in that state, you can impact more of your life. So as you're waking up, if you can just tune into like, what is a wow today? Like, what am I super grateful for? And then just allow yourself to be grateful for whatever it is that's happened, whatever it is that has maybe yet to happen that you're grateful for. Like, I can't wait till that abundance comes in. I can't wait till that promotion. I can't wait till I marry the love of my life. I can't wait. I'm so grateful for the feeling of what it feels like to have that life that I'm living. And so in 30 Days of Miracles, it's a very simple practice, a simple but very transformative practice. It transformed my life back then. And now, I'm living this life that is beyond the miracles that I had experienced even 2 or 3 years ago before that dark night of the soul. And what I would love to offer to anybody who's listening also, not only would love to have you join the 30 Days of Miracles, which is a free experience, but also no matter where you are in your life, if you're experiencing amazing miracles right now and an amazing life that you love, there's always more that can be experienced. There's more magic, there's more miracles, there's more love, there's more vitality, there's more of that you can welcome in. And also, if you're experiencing what I was experiencing 3 years ago and actually struggling because you're in the midst of transition and maybe you're going through a tough time, just know that this practice will support you to completely change your life, your day, your happiness, your how you show up in the world and what you're able to welcome into the world. And so no matter where you are, this this is supportive. The other thing that I offer in 30 Days of Miracles, I wanted it to be very simple. So, I say if you have 10 minutes a day, you can completely change your life. I send an email in the morning, and in that email is a quote to set the vibration and the frequency for the day, and then also a mantra and a little bit of context. And so, there's a mantra that people can live into, of just, I am confident, or I am a miracle, or just remembering what that is. But every day there's a different mantra, and people can read the message. They also can, there's a PDF journal so that people can fill out their morning wows and their goodnight gratitudes. And then we also have a weekly challenge that allows people to really stretch into expanding into the miraculous. And so that's a lot of what 30 Days of Miracles is. And when you're experiencing the miraculous in your life, and I know for you as well, because I know a lot of your story, it's like you came to this place in your life and you experienced a level of freedom that now all you want to do is scream it from the rooftops and help other people achieve it and have it. And that's where 30 Days of Miracles came from, is like, I was going through a tough time a couple years ago. This was my practice, and I want everyone to have access to it because it's not that difficult and it can change your life.
And it is super powerful. I'm absolutely loving it. So what we'll do, Maya, is we'll include the link in the show notes, and we'll also include your details if people want to get in touch with you as well. Awesome. We are very, very much running out of time. Always, there's so many things that I would love to explore more with you, but I just would love to sort of recap a little bit. To ground people in sort of the tangible takeaways. And I love what you've just said about the gratitude practice. So I would definitely encourage our listeners to start doing that daily morning and evening gratitude, just journaling what you're grateful for, 3 things in the morning, 3 things in the evening, perhaps. And then I think what we've talked about a lot was that, you have the X factor. Really it's about you believing it first, and you showing up and doing it for you, first and foremost, and taking the smallest of action as the next step, I think is super powerful, because it doesn't have to be big, and it's also about trusting in our ability to figure things out. And it's about the journey, it's not the destination. It's absolutely taking the moment, the now. Be her now, be him now, and being in the journey, being present and fully alive. Anything else you want to say, just as a passing thought?
I would, although what I would love, and you let me know if I would love to share the poem that came through me yesterday. That is, You Are a Miracle. Yes. And so if you love it, I will share it with everybody.
Yes,
and so it's
we would absolutely love that.
Yeah, it's very much in alignment. And I really want to honor and celebrate this space. I talk about wanting to be permission for each person. And I've never shared my poetry or transmission on a podcast. So this will be our first one. And so I so deeply appreciate the honor of being able to share it in this space, and that you are the one that feels very divine for me, that you are the one that I'm sharing this poem and with your community. And it's so very much aligned to the messaging that we've talked about, of how miraculous each person is. Everyone has an X factor. You're born for something. There's something that, you're here to experience. And also, that sometimes we're navigating burnout and stress and feel like we might be broken or what have you, and we're not. And so this message came through me yesterday to share. And so I'll share it with you guys. It's called You Are the Miracle.
Thank you, Maya.
So you are not broken. You are not too late. You are remembering so loudly right now that your body can barely hold the voltage. But this isn't collapse. This is becoming. This is unbecoming. You're not pushing anymore. You're opening. You're not performing power. You're embodying it. And this version of you, he can't be hidden. She or he won't be muted. The message today is clear. Show up with your face, with your voice, with your tremble, with your truth. Stop waiting for perfect. Stop editing your magic into palatable pieces, Give it all, uncurated, unapologetic, undiluted. I didn't plant galaxies in your womb so you could wait for perfect lighting and timing to post a reel. I made you a threshold because you were born to walk others home. So stop gathering courage, gather fire. Stop asking which path, become the road. Stop asking for a sign. You are the effing sign. Let your body soften. Let your words pierce. Let your face be seen. Let your soul be naked. And if you ever forget, come back here to this page, to this video, to this podcast, to this moment, to this vow. You are not waiting for the miraculous. You are the miracle remembering yourself. And now, finally, you've come home.
Thank you so much, Maya. So beautiful. So thank you, everybody, for listening, for watching. I'm sure, Maya, you're going to get lots of people wanting to reach out and join you on this beautiful journey. I'm so honored to be with you on this journey and continue to be with you on this journey. And so we will leave it there. I feel a bit emotional now. But yeah, everybody, thank you for tuning in today. And yeah, if you loved it, you know where to find me. We'll have all the details in the show notes. So do reach out and live your best lives. You know, live lives that you absolutely love. Take care. Bye for now.